corn may be one of your favorite vegetables of all time, but if you're like me, it's the one that you avoid putting on your plate at dinner time. However, this all changed when I was introduced to street corn. My first time trying it was as a snack from a vendor on a sidewalk, and let me tell you, there is nothing as delicious as this corn. It is served warm and it is very chewy. It is super zesty, but also a little creamy, and it is the perfect flavor to make corn enjoyable as a snack or a dinner side or anything along those lines. Following this presented recipe today will lead to the best street corn you have ever tasted. And today I will be informing those watching this presentation on how to make this delicious dish. The first step in making homemade street corn is to gather your ingredients. This includes a bowl, a nice big bowl, so you can mix everything together. You will need a microwave to heat some of the ingredients. You will also need a fork to stir the ingredients and a spatula to mix the corn in at the end. And the food ingredients that we need are a frozen bag of corn, butter stick, mayonnaise, paprika, salt, black pepper, 1 lime, garlic powder, green onions, crumbled feta cheese, and cilantro. The second step is to mix these ingredients together, and the first step with that is obviously to measure out how much of the ingredients you need. So you need a 10-ounce bag of frozen corn, a tablespoon and a half of butter, same measurement for the mayonnaise, tablespoon and a half. You need half a teaspoon of paprika, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, quarter teaspoon of salt, quarter teaspoon of black pepper, and I mentioned you need just 1 singular lime. You need 3 green onions, half a cup of crumbled feta cheese, and 2 tablespoons of cilantro. Next, you will need to warm up some of your ingredients, starting with the butter. You can also thaw it out in the kitchen, but I'm a little bit impatient, so I like to put it in the microwave for like 30 seconds so it's nice and soft. And then you will mix that with the mayonnaise. That's why I use a fork, because I have found that using a whisk or a blender, because they're super creamy, it gets stuck into it. So I just mix the mayonnaise and the butter with a fork, super simple. And once that's done, you can start to add the spices. So this would include the paprika, salt, black pepper, garlic powder, and stir it up. Then you will include the lime to make it a little bit less thick, because the mayonnaise and butter do make it a really thick sauce. So the lime will lessen it out a little bit. This also gives it the zesty flavor. You want to squeeze the lime so even little chunks of it will fall into it as well, makes it perfect. After this, you want to be microwaving your bag of frozen corn. My microwave, it only takes about 4.5 minutes to do it, but it also depends on the brand you buy and all of that good stuff. And after that is all done, I pour the sauce over the warm corn, and then I chop up the green onions into itty bitty pieces, pour those into the bowl. Same thing with the feta, just pour it right on top. Cilantro, right on top. And I mix this with the spatula so it doesn't stir up the feta or green onions, because I want them to stay just how I poured them in. Mix that up with a spatula and you have the perfect street corn. Another thing I want to discuss when introducing a recipe to an audience is do's and don'ts of cooking. Cooking in general, but specifically towards this recipe. Things you should do. Clean up as you are cooking to save time. For example, if I use the mayonnaise, once I'm done with it, instead of just leaving it out and creating a bigger mess for later, I'm going to take the mayonnaise and put it back in the refrigerator where I got it from, and then continue to add the next ingredient. This way, it saves me time when I'm done, so I can just eat my meal rather than spending a lot of time cleaning up. Also, the moment I use a fork, I'll rinse it off and put it in the dishwasher before I go back and add more ingredients. Another thing to do while making this recipe is using the exact measurements I have provided. I have learned that if you go even a little bit off of it, you might have too much. There was an instance where I put too much mayonnaise in this recipe and it almost ruined the dish for me forever. It was not very good. Something you should not do while making this recipe is put the sauce onto the corn immediately after it was heated up. The corn should come out of the microwave and sit for about a minute or two so it's not steaming hot, cools down a little bit. That way your sauce just doesn't disintegrate to the bottom of the bowl. If you wait a little bit, it'll keep the sauce thick and creamy, and that is what's going to give your corn the perfect taste. In conclusion, you want to make sure to gather your ingredients and mix them and stay along the recipe. Do not create your own measurements and do not add special little ingredients. Even if you feel like it needs it, you might not want to do it because it might ruin the recipe. So if you want the perfect street corn recipe, be sure to follow what I have mentioned in this presentation, because you will get the most delicious, warm, zesty side dish that you could ever ask for. And it might make corn one of your new favorite vegetables to have on your plate.